Great, and we're good to go. And then I'm just going to share my screen. And then just check in to make sure everybody you're seeing the slide.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so fantastic. Well, you already know what you're here for. So let's just get it. We're going to be going through how to create emotional recipes for how you want to feel. And what I like about this process is because specifically, we can deal with the emotions that we wish to avoid, but we can also look specifically at the emotions that we want to feel more of. But we really need to know the flip side, the yin and the yang. So the thing that you don't enjoy, the feeling that you don't enjoy, well, what is the polar opposite or the polarity of that, for a lack of a better word? So it's totally up to you, but I would invite you to take notes along the way, especially as this is a process and it's engaging for you to work with where you are now and what you know. And the way in which this process really works is I'm not giving you really anything new. I will be asking questions of you that you will be answering specific to your own situation or needs right now. And then the process helps you build upon what you already know, which is called neuroassociations, which means you can learn something more about yourself. You can discover a way of self-mastery that comes from working with what you already know. So whether you take notes on the computer or do it by hand is up to you. But let's just identify how you're feeling right now. And I would just write that down, whether it's a single feeling or emotion or just a sentence, just to check in so that we can see where you're at. Like, you know, you might be nervous. Oh, you're attending a webinar, or you're like, crappy day. You're like, oh, I'm really excited about this. What is sort of the tone? This is called your hedonic tone, meaning if you've heard of the word hedonism, which is usually that revelry and like just the best, most exuberant, most joyful, maybe even erotic emotions. But what is your hedonic tone that you're feeling right now? Ambivalence, excitement, joy, calmness, trepidation. If you can just give an identification to that. So really, very briefly, most of you know who I am if you've been following along, and specifically, I like to say that I do thoughtful leadership and self-mastery. I kind of find it funny to call myself a thought leader. Maybe I just need to own that more, but I specifically help creators and change makers and queer thinking people pursue their purpose to enjoy more acceptance, freedom, and peace of mind. And my clients come to me to become more skillful and efficient in accomplishing their goals with the least amount of resistance. So I consider myself an expert in the overlap between creative production, self-mastery, that's another word for personal growth, personal development, excuse me, and the principles of human-heartedness. I'm just looking over to the side at some of my notes. I don't have to go into my whole long history on my website. There's a good long description of where I've come from and the kind of circuitous road that got me to this point. But suffice to say, I've always been very interested in self-examination, and I think that is what led me into working for 10 years in LGBTQ print media, the exploration of the self and advocacy for LGBTQ rights, and then strangely going into personal training and fitness coaching. But the connection between mind and body, awareness and overall well-being, and the extension of that, then moving into what some people call life coaching, but I think more of as self-mastery and leadership, or almost consulting for, you know, experiencing most of what you want out of life in the most efficient, joyful way possible. So that's it. That's probably the shortest introduction you're ever going to see on a webinar that usually goes for about 20 to 30 minutes to sell the person. So I want to just briefly explain a couple points here. The PFC versus emotions. So the PFC is short for your prefrontal cortex, generally the part of the brain that's in the very front of your brain. It's the youngest part of our brain. It's sort of considered our reasoning or our logical brain. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm thinking through, I'm working through this process that I've created. I'm delivering it to you. I'm thinking ahead to what's in the next slide. Versus your emotions. And your emotions are part of what are called the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, and a couple of other parts. It's not, emotions aren't just in the brain, but the anterior cingulate cortex and the prefrontal cortex do communicate, but the ACC is an older part of your brain. It's called the mammalian brain in sort of colloquial terms, like the animal brain. And the other way of expressing ACC is acceptance, connection, and care. The mammalian brain is where we get love. And love is the expression or the reception of acceptance, connection, and care. And how safe do you feel in those things in your environment, which includes physical space, people around you, your work, and all those kinds of things. So sometimes there's like headbutting between the needs of the mammalian brain not being met and what the logical brain thinks it can manage. And the way we've evolved, your mammalian brain is always going to win until you get the needs of your emotions met, until you get the needs of acceptance or connection and care met. It don't matter what your reasoning brain thinks, there'll still be a battle, right? And worst case scenarios when you go into your reptilian brain, the amygdala, which is your fight, flight, or freeze. That is absolutely your self-preservation and protection. So I mentioned this to John Carl the other day. JATDQ. I'm making this more polite. So when I present questions, this is meant in the most kindest way possible. Just answer the damn question. My coach changed damn to F. Just answer the damn question, meaning we can get into our heads, right, about how we think we should answer this question or what we wonder about the other people on the call or the expectations we have of ourselves about, well, I should be feeling this way or I shouldn't be feeling this emotion. If you can, let it go and just answer the question sort of as quick as you can get pen to paper. You'll get the most honest truth out of who you are.
I have a question.
I was just going to do a check-in. Do you have any questions at this point?
Can you go back to your previous slide, please?
Yeah.
Okay. As you know, I am an old critical care nurse and also a closet psychologist.
Yeah.
When I look at your point number 2, meanings of anterior cingulate cortex.
You know what? It's cingulate. Yeah, you're not cruciate. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, I'm looking at anterior cruciate ligament, and that's in your knee, as you know.
Anterior cingulate. Thank you. You know what? Oh my goodness.
And I'm also just checking that as far as I know, ACC should be because singular is S, right?
Singular.
Anterior singular cortex is actually an S.
I'll have to check. I've been learning this for the last year and I've only seen it spelt with a C. So I will check on that. But thank you for well, I think you all knew what I meant. I just had the wrong term. Oh,
yeah. I was looking at the ligament and going, okay.
Well, you know, if our brains were in our knees, we would have a very different problem.
Yes, they aren't.
So the reason you've all come today, the problem or the challenge that we all face is how can we master our thoughts? How can we be a master of our thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors? And as I was saying in the previous slide, without the right acronym, we are often at the mercy of our older brains, which are meant to protect us. And our thinking brain will have control when everything else feels good. Which is why if we can experience more of the emotions we want to feel and fewer of those that we want to avoid, the more we can be in our reasoning, logical brain. So this brings us to sort of a general way of looking at this process and how we get to the solution of the strategy. It's a simple equation. Our self-awareness with an observation. It almost sounds like it's two same things, but it's a little bit more, because there's a self-awareness going inward, but let's say observation of not only ourselves, but ourselves in the environments in which we find ourselves and the other things that might be outside of ourselves that could trigger us to feel in a good way or in a not so good way. And then a process will give us preparedness. And the preparedness is the emotional recipe process that I'm going to teach. And another way of thinking about this is the more calm, secure, and efficient and able we are to do things that we want to accomplish in our lives, the greater amount of prediction and response we have about everything. The more prediction we have that, you know, if someone knows me, like Carrie and John Carl, they can sort of expect things from how I might deliver this presentation. So they might feel more secure about what to expect. Dave doesn't maybe know me directly, so I don't know what he's feeling. But just in a general situation, you go into a party with a whole bunch of people you don't know, you don't have a lot of prediction because you don't know the people. And so your choice of how to respond in that party may be limited and pending how those people are going to interact with you. So it's a 3-step process that I'll take you through, and then we're going to get right into it. Define, refine, and align. And this is a process that I take you through for all of my other personal evolution processes that I've created to this point. And define, most simply, giving meaning to something, giving a label to it. And refining is just reframing, looking at how you defined that thing, maybe with a new perspective, or maybe questioning or challenging the accepted definition that you've maybe had for a certain point of time, or that you've assigned in the upcoming questions. And then finally, align is getting in line with, or getting almost parallel with, or in emotional, I add the emotional part. The more we are very much sort of emotionally connected with what it is we want, the easier it is for us to continue forward with what it is that we want to do. All right, so now we get into the process. So the first step here is for us to start with emotions that you want to avoid. Now, you could list up to 3 to 5 emotions, but I would suggest for the purpose of the duration of this webinar not being too long, just jot down a single word, or if it's a hyphenated word, for example, 2 to 3 emotions that take you out of feeling your best, or cause you to struggle and become reactive. These would be your undesired emotions. These would be the emotions you want to avoid. So I'll just give you a moment there, and maybe just raise your hand when you've noted the emotions. And if you have a question, just feel free to ask. And if it helps, think about these would be the dominant emotions you wish to avoid. If you can't, think of whenever you maybe get angry or upset or depressed, because you may fall more towards one type of feeling than another. Or if someone has regularly told you, you know, you need to really manage X emotion. If that's the one you want to list, then that would be a good one to put down. How are you doing, Dave?
Okay.
Carrie, are you good?
Yes, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Now, the next step here in the define process is to identify the ingredients, thus the name emotional recipes, that lead to making each one of those unwanted, undesirable emotions possible. So you can frame your answers by using sentence stems to make this perhaps a little bit easier. So these are just examples. These might not be your list, but if I want to feel, imagine like you actually want to feel sad, angry, frustrated, pissed off. I would need to do, I would need to have, I would need to experience, I would need some person, I would need to go. There are so many possibilities here.
And you want us to answer that question based on the 2 or 3 emotions we listed previously.
Thank you. Yes. So if you want to just start with like one of the emotions, then list a few things and you could leave some space. And if you aren't sure how to keep adding to that, you can go to the next emotion. There's no sequence required. Just keep adding. And the beautiful thing about this process is once it's done, you can review afterwards to see if there's more you wish to add and polish. So like while you're making your notes, I'll just give you some examples. And the challenging thing in this kind of a process is that if I give you some of my own examples, the hope is not to influence your experience of the process. So anger is my thing. It's much less than it ever used to be because I've done a lot of self-work in that area. But for me, I know that some of the ingredients are injustice, prejudice, arrogance, belligerence. If I encounter those in any kind of social situations, if I encounter them online, if I, read about it in the news, those are the ingredients that could add to that recipe, the method that would lead to me being angry. If I'm disrespected by someone and my partner, if I feel, that thankfully doesn't happen, but if for some reason I feel or believe that I've been disrespected, that goes right to my core. That can drive me right into anger. Other ingredients, lack of sleep, or maybe I had too much fun on the weekend and went to the island for suntanning and drank too much and I'm a little hungover, so I've got a headache and all I need is that one little thing and bam, I've lost it. I'll give you all a little bit more time here, but if anyone wants to share or ask some questions or maybe just take me through some examples for one of your emotions and what the ingredients are, please feel free.
I'll talk about mine because anger is also an issue that I have dealt with a lot. And like you, I have also done a tremendous amount of work on it over the years. Yeah. So I do feel that I am much better. However, unfortunately, the pandemic and I think a little bit of isolation and some conflict with people has made me aware that I'm actually not on top of my anger issues as I would like to be.
Yeah.
And I have started to identify things like you said, like being overtired. For me, it's more like if I'm in a social situation and we're actually drinking, I notice that people seem to get a little scrappier when they're when they are altered by drugs or alcohol, and they maybe feel more free to say things that I feel provoked by, and so I jump right in and we're off to the races, and it can go bad really quickly.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah, the I'll open it up maybe just if one more person wants to say anything, but we can, with the best of intentions, be very self-aware, let's say, or having done the work, like you said, but then something like a pandemic, which everyone has been affected by to such an extent that is entirely unprecedented. And like, in a sense, almost now more than ever. I wish I had to come up with this seminar a year ago, because I don't think I would have had enough space on Zoom. I think people have certainly covered some tricks along the way.
I can talk about one of mine a little bit.
Sure, Dave, please.
One of the emotions I want to avoid is sadness.
Yeah.
And what I wrote was, if I want to feel sadness, all I would need to do is ruminate,
right,
and about all the sad things that have happened to me in recent months. And I can get on this spiral that just goes down and down and down towards getting depressed. So I need to be able to stop that spiral, and not keep thinking about things that have happened in my past. So that's what I wrote.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if there's whether that be now or whether that be following the seminar, if you want to like look at that this step again and see if there's even more to the sadness, like, is it a location that this happens in more often than not? Is it in your home? Is it in your bedroom? Is it after talking with someone? Is it after listening to a certain kind of music? There are so many different possible situations, which, and I'm kind of giving away, but there's nothing to hide here. Things that we can look at in the rest of the process that we can use to manage how we want to feel, at the same time manage how we don't.
Yeah, there are a number of triggers that I've identified that I can say, okay, just put that aside.
Right.
Don't go there.
Well, let's move on to the next step, the final step in the define, which is identify alternatives to the ingredients that you just identified. And what that means is we're kind of looking at, it's not so much the positive and a negative, but it is easy to use that binary opposition of those words. So specify the actions, activities, processes that would reduce or eliminate those undesirable emotions or feelings. So, for example, if I don't want to feel angry, sad, frustrated, I would need to
never leave my house.
And you know what? Write that down, because it's funny, but it even though it could be at the extreme, it is absolutely worth writing down for the awareness of it, because you can temper that, right? So look at each one of the emotions you identify, look at the ingredients that you previously identified. And so if you want, you could have either 3 columns or however you want to manage it, 3 rows, and you can just sort of look back to each of the ingredients. And is there an alternative? Is there sort of a polarity, a polar opposite action or activity or process or habit that would reduce or eliminate the undesirable emotion or feeling?
So could you give us an example of what an alternative might be? So
using mine for anger, if I don't want to feel anger, I would need to, and these are my own answers, I would need to realize that anger is a normal human response. I would need to ask myself what I can do as a result of feeling anger. And what sort of helps me is, what can I do as a result of feeling anger to be the change I want to see in the world? I would need to realize that people who attack me on social media or leave negative comments don't deserve my engagement. Or I would need to not read comments on articles, or I would need to make sure I've had enough sleep and I've done whatever practices so that I have like the best state of mind. If I don't want to feel angry, and I could add a condition here, I haven't added this into the process. And let's say I know I'm not doing well one day. Let's say I hadn't had a good sleep, but I'm like, I've got something to do. Like, oh, I've got to give a webinar today. Well, I better be in my best frame of mind. I would know that I need to take care of myself for the entire morning, have a bath, relax, don't do any other work other than get ready, check my lighting. I didn't have a bad morning, but that's how I prepared myself today to make sure that I can be here for all of you without bringing my own shit.
Yeah. Thanks. That helps.
How are you doing here, John Carl?
I'm doing okay. I listed 2 emotions, anxiety and fear, and then I added shame.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm stuck on the ingredient part.
Mm-hmm.
What I come up with is, paying attention to shaming influences.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind, I solved my own question.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Never mind.
So how would you provide more detail on the shaming influences? Can you whether you share that here, or whether you write that down, like what are the various things? Is it something on social media? Is it a family member? Is it a thought down memory lane about a particular situation in your life? Is it something you're not proud of? Is it the clothes you wear?
Yeah. Definitely social media and memories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's one go-to thing that I've done a lot in the last year or two to help me deal with a lot of emotions, but I get out of my apartment and go for a walk.
Yeah.
I mean, it just helps me to clear a lot of things out of my head and get out of my head, get out in the environment and just enjoy what's out there. And I always feel much better afterwards.
Getting outside, even if it's not the most like in nature, but allowing ourselves to connect. I'm not a very, how should I put that? I'm very spiritually non-spiritual, but I very much understand the connection physiologically and the need that we have as human beings to connect with nature. And the more that we are behind screens and technology, the more we forget that it's absolutely a part of who we are. We are of nature. We are not separate. And when we allow ourselves back into the awe experience of, oh, listen to that bird. Wow. The one thing I've noticed with COVID out my window is I've never heard so many birds. And I hope they don't go away once we're back to full busyness, but and birds I've never heard before, and they've quieted down because I think it must have been mating season a month ago, but it was like, what's going on at 5 o'clock in the morning? But I would wake up and I'm like, I feel like I'm in the Amazon. This is amazing. It's like, I'd be like, wow, wow, wow. And the kind of endorphins that releases is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So just, seeing the smallest flower, seeing, a bird flying or a hawk flying overhead, or just, noticing those things, it is absolutely revitalizing for us as beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you all feeling with this exercise? Do you have had enough time to move through this question?
I think there's more to do. I mean, I haven't gotten even to all the other feelings I want to avoid, emotions I want to avoid, but I sort of feel like, okay, I understand the process you're doing here.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe write down another 1 or 2 ideas for other, like I said, you can also focus just on one emotion, work that all the way through, and then you can go back on your own time if you wish. But even if you just jot down a few things.
It's a great exercise. I mean, I think like the cognitive process of going through these steps, I could see where if I could keep an awareness of how, you know, like the first question, if I want to feel angry, here's the setup.
Yeah.
If I don't want to feel angry, if I would rather, let's say, stay calm, in that same potentially explosive situation, I would need to, for instance, breathe. Right. Count to 3.
And write those down somewhere on the margins, because those will be the things you will use when we get to the actual sort of recipe method. Shall we move on to refinement?
Yep.
Okay. So as I said towards the beginning, refinement is like, you know, reframing, looking at some of these questions or definitions from a slightly different perspective, so we can uncover some more of the layers. So now we've identified how we don't want to feel, or the emotions we want to feel. So how do you want to feel most of the time? And I won't necessarily say that these are positive or negative emotions, because our emotions are an expression of something that's going on within us that is a part of who we are. What we sometimes call negative emotions are emotions we really need to experience, because they're signals. They're a way of communicating things we value, things we believe, or things we are uncomfortable with. And we need to be attuned to them, as opposed to thinking, well, I only want to have positive emotions, where we as human beings evolve from also working through and understanding those things that we would wish to avoid. So almost mirror image to the first question in the define step. It's like, identify the top or the core 2 to 3 desired emotions you want to feel that support your well-being, your best self, your most authentic, whatever you want to call it, but that might sometimes elude you. So this is sort of a bit of a twist on the question there, because there may be a sort of like a empowering, feel-good feeling emotion that you have most of the time. Great. That's not the one you really want to work on, I would think. The emotions that elude you, that you most want to feel in this sense, are the ones we really want to give definition or highlight here. And it's not doing justice to say that it is the opposite or the polarity of the emotions you want to avoid. It might be. Somebody might say the opposite of anger is happiness. Well, somebody else might say the opposite of anger is contentment, or the opposite of anger is peace of mind. This is when really getting the right word for you is why this is an individual process, because you have to have the alignment in the sense of being in agreement with what that word means for you and how you feel that emotion. Dave, maybe I can ask you how you're coming up with these 2 to 3.
Sure. Two I know right off the bat. I want to feel content and connected.
Mm-hmm.
The third one, I wrote down aware. I'm not sure if that's exactly what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell me what you think that means, and maybe you'll speak through the right word or meaning for yourself.
I want to feel more conscious of what's going on around me, and understanding things, feeling prepared for things. You know, if I'm more aware of what's happening, and even, I would say, even aware of my own emotional state at the moment, that I might be able to feel more content and connected. I don't know exactly.
Sure. But, some words that come to mind are, maybe expanding that to be self-aware or consciously aware or in the moment, present, just all like synonyms that have slightly different meanings. And you may want to play with them to see if something else comes of that, or something really, it might be that there's actually like 2 words that pull all the variables together for you, or 3.
Okay.
I think for me, there's, because of my nursing and my osteopathy background, I think for me, there's a very big physiological response that I have tried to become aware of, like muscle tension. I can feel my face flushing as I'm getting angrier. I can feel my tension in my throat, so my voice is changing. And I can also feel, for instance, the volume of my voice going up, because I think as a child in a household of 5 children, and I'm the middle child, nobody listened to me.
Right.
So the only way I could be heard was to raise my voice,
right,
and demand that moment of listen to me.
Right.
And I know that that is very, very triggering for other people.
Right.
So learning to keep the cadence and the pace and the tone of my voice in the right place, and breathe, and keep my heart rate and blood pressure from going through the roof as I get under the influence of cortisol and everything.
Those sound like some good, those are actually the ingredients, and maybe I just sort of thought of this now. Ingredients might not just be like a single thing, but it's the ingredients lead. The ingredient can also be like a process or a behavior or a habit or a condition, right? So those things for you are the ingredients that lead to the emotions you want to avoid. But what you've also been expressing there is like in that are knowing the other ingredients to create the recipe so that you won't experience that raising of the voice, so that somebody will pay attention to you. So then coming up, you might be able to work on those ingredients to create the recipe for lack of a better word, so that I'm listened to, or so that I'm heard, and making that even more positive, or not positive, but empowering, would be for your own confidence to know that you can say what you need to say with your own control of yourself and your desired emotions while delivering that message.
Okay.
So as we did before, well, not before, we're going to get back into a definition, but in the refinement process for these emotions that we want to feel, just define each one. Define what each one of those desirable emotions means to you. So, Dave was saying content, connected, and was working with the right word around aware. and I gave you some synonyms, for example. Those could be all ways in which you might define what aware means, as an example, using something right in the moment here. But be as specific and detailed and precise as possible with your description for each of these desired emotional states. Like, really drill down into, like, what, if I want to feel joy, if I want to feel content, if I want to feel confident, what exactly does that mean? And I'll give you just one example. For me, one of mine is joy as a desirable emotion. And thankfully, my goodness, I feel more and more joy all the time. But the way I define it, one of the definitions is frequent moments in my day of blissful happiness and appreciation. Because part of this sometimes is understanding what an emotion in particular is, or how it is defined. Like, joy is pretty fleeting, and what really joy can kind of come out of happiness or can lead to more happiness, but there are these the ephemeral moments. So the more we can have of them, the more we get almost these little hits of the feel-good chemicals in our brain. How are you doing with this one, John Carl?
I'm doing well. I've found only a phrase or two for each positive emotion.
Do you mind sharing one or two, or what your desirable emotions are that you want to have or experience more often?
Sure. I want to feel calm, and that looks like steady breathing for me. And maybe patience. I want to feel confident, and tying that to good posture and having a strong voice. And I want to feel focused, and the word that comes to mind is present.
So I would challenge you or invite you to, if not now, then later, try and get even more specific. Focused, and the word that comes to mind is present. Present, I think, is a part of being focused, but what does focus really mean? What are the other elements that might give you that description? Can you be present without focus?
Not really present.
Well, you could be present and in flow state, which is kind of a focus. But I think I would kind of side with you there. But this is where, drilling down even more will really help. How are you all doing with this question?
It's a little harder, I think,
to
define what they mean. I'm having trouble with connected. I wrote something down about know that I have 3 friends I can contact if I want to. I'm not exactly sure. I guess it's, I have felt in the past unconnected, like there weren't people that I could reach out to.
Okay.
And I've been working on developing that circle of people I can feel connected to.
So I would almost say, it doesn't have to be right or wrong here. I would almost say that's like an ingredient. So think of connected as a feeling. You feel connected. What are the other ways in which you would describe the feeling of being connected? Even if it helps you to think of being disconnected, how did that feel? So then what is the opposite of feeling connected? Connected might be the best word that you want to express it, but what are the other words that describe how do you feel when you're connected?
That I have people who I care about and they care about me.
Would you call that close friendships?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here. I'm just sort of looking at the refinement, really, of how this might help get clarity. So if you remember, I said the ACC, acceptance, connection, care, love. So those 4 words could be part, if they are fitting for you, what connection means: acceptance, connection,
Right.
connected, care, love, maybe freedom of expression, maybe respect. I don't know, but are there feelings that you enjoy that are part of that core emotion connection?
Yeah.
That are also the
Okay.
ways in which you identify that you have it or you don't.
I can give you an example of something that has happened with me
Mhm.
throughout COVID.
Mhm.
I have 3 sisters and a brother, but we can discount my brother because he's not on the internet or social media.
Mhm.
So the 4 of us, we're on a group thread on Messenger. They're in Calgary, Vancouver, and Dawson Creek, and I'm in Toronto. So what happens when the 4 of us get talking about all of our stuff, and they've all got kids and I don't? I'm the only lesbian in the family and they're all married to guys. So what can happen is it's like the 3 of them are having a conversation and somehow I'm kind of having trouble like getting into the conversation and feeling like, is anybody listening to me? And sometimes, I say I gotta go and I'm gone. Other times I kind of say, we're all talking about what we ate for dinner last night and you guys didn't even listen to what I said I had.
Right.
And I know it seems kind of stupid and foolish and whatever, but I think in the bigger context of building that bond that we have as sisters, that's that thing about being heard. And of course, because there's still family dynamics there at the ripe old age of 63, in looking at acceptance, connection, and care, trying to figure out like what do I need to happen in that circumstance, so I don't feel myself starting to feel kind of angry and irritated that they're not listening to me.
Right. I think there's a lot to uncover there, possibly. For now, it might be good just to look at those 3 words: acceptance, connection, care, as you've identified here. A good question to write down for yourself and to work through the aspects of this process with like that specific scenario, because it's really great when you have a scenario like this, and then you can say, well, now let's go through the ingredients that then just piss me off. Let's go through the ingredients that happen in a great conversation that make me feel loved and appreciated and heard. And then, since we can only manage ourselves, we can ask others to do things, but they have to then decide that they're going to do them or not. Then what would then be the recipe you would create? So perhaps what we're going through here will help you then figure out, how do I need to prepare myself before I get on this family call? Are there things I need to like say so that they better understand me? And who knows? I don't know what all the potential challenges with that would be.
Right. No, but it's I think just that one thing you've said, like prepare myself a little better for the dynamics that go on in that call.
There's, I'll never forget. I love this. It's one of Eckhart Tolle's books. I think it's his New World, his second book or something. And he says something like, you know, I meet people all the time. I think this is the section. It's like, you meet people all the time and they're like, oh, I'm so calm. I'm in tune with the universe. I've been meditating for 20 years. I just came back from a 20-day retreat. And he's like, go visit your family and tell me how calm, cool, and collected you are.
Yeah.
Because no matter how much we are in tune with our family, it's like, you know, we learn all these things about our emotions from how we're brought up and our beliefs and our values and things like that. So if we haven't looked into what all that means, those triggers may be subconscious to us, but we can uncover them. So,
Yeah.
can we
Okay.
move on to the next question?
Yeah.
Okay. So like we did last time, we're going to identify every single ingredient for the emotional recipes to create one of your, or to create each one of your 2 to 3 desired emotions. So, you know, if you want to just focus on one emotion for now, or if you want to jot down things, we're not doing the recipes quite yet, but start with the ingredients. Carrie, you've mentioned a few things that may have overlap to in the situation with their family, to things you've already written down. As you write these down, think in your head, how would I assemble these ingredients? What ingredients would I need to have on hand? You know, a behavior, a habit, a condition, a kind of a preparedness, so that I can actually have a method, so I can have a plan to set myself up. I'm just using different words to say the same thing, right? It's like, if you want to have beautifully baked, nicely browned chocolate chip cookies, you got to have the ingredients. You got to know how to organize them. You got to know how to cook them. You've got to watch them while you're cooking. You've got to know when to take them out of the oven so they can cool and they're still going to cook a little bit so that you don't take them over the edge. The same thing. It's such a useful metaphor that we do with, once we identify all these small things, these individual moments, these individual ingredients. This isn't a snap of the finger and you'll suddenly have a better conversation, or you'll feel more contented, or you'll feel more calm. These are the building blocks so that you can have the recipes, so that you can practice them and become ever more prepared and ever more proficient at creating the emotions you want to feel.
I guess I'm feeling stumped about that.
Okay. Tell me more.
I don't know what that means in this exercise, the ingredients, what that means.
Okay. So which one of the emotions maybe do you want to focus on here that you want to identify the ingredients for?
Well, let's talk about the connected one again.
Okay. So you've identified having friends, having close friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there could be acquaintances, there could be colleagues, there could be close friends, there could be BFFs. So you could have, those could be more than one ingredient. But what else can you do to create connection?
Have meaningful conversations with them periodically.
Mm-hmm. So I think the last word, periodically, time. So maybe one of the ingredients involves a kind of a frequency. Maybe one of the ingredients for you involves setting a reminder. It's like, oh, I know I need to see people 3 times a week so that I will feel connected. So that's already part of the recipe. You know, to feel connected, I need so many super close friends. I need to connect with them how many times of the week. I need to connect with them in a particular way. Maybe it's over dinner. Maybe it's for a movie. Maybe it's for a walk. Maybe it's for sport. Is this helping?
Yeah, yeah.
So you really flesh out this is the self-mastery, which is an oft overused word, but I just really connect with it, meaning we are deciding what we ourselves need to do to create the outcome. So if you're wanting connection, but aren't manipulating the ingredients to foster, to cook the possibility for connection, then it won't happen.
I guess another, and I don't know how to say it, but like take the first step. I mean,
Yeah.
take action.
Mhm.
You know, do something. don't be passive in this connection, in remaining connected.
A challenge as we all get older, I face this too, is it's like we get so, it's like, oh, making new friends, did that in high school. It's like, damn, I need to make new friends because now they all live far away or across the globe. And so sometimes maybe it's sort of like one of the ingredients is a challenge to pick a social group, find a new network. I don't know. This is for you to sort of figure out. How you doing, John Carl?
I'm working on focused.
Okay.
And
Well, you seem very focused, so it's good.
Good one, Darren.
yeah. I have three things, and I'm not sure they're ingredients. I have conducive environment, conducive time period, and conducive mood. I'm not sure that's what you're looking for.
Well, it's not what I'm looking for, but you said environment, mood, and conducive.
Like a block of time.
Oh, time. Okay. So there's a few things there. Maybe you, like when I said in the last step about specificity. So
Oh, okay.
environment, that's great, but get specific. What kind of an environment? So for you to focus, so it's going to depend on the kind of focus. Is this focus for your writing? Is this focus for being with a client? Is this focus for being able to create a video, whether that be recording or outlining? And if it all happens in your office, well, then there's your environment. And John Carl and I work together. He's one of my coaching clients, so I won't be giving anything away here, but you made a big change, John, with your Post-it notes.
Yes.
So your environment was kind of distracting. So that's not conducive. So your workplace, if there's all kinds of stuff around that's distracting you from the task at hand, you won't be focused. So that can drill down more like what's on my desk, what's on my wall. And then we've also been working on time of day, half day blocks, what kind of work you do at what time in the day. That's all your conducive. But this is now drilling down into the what exactly is conducive, what kind of environment exactly, what time of day, what day of the week, and mood. And mood will have its own set of ingredients and recipe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. So I broke down environment into light, music, temperature, aesthetically pleasing, and air quality.
Nice. And get more specific. Air quality, what does that mean? Like, I like to work in smog. I like to work while people are smoking next to me, or I like to have my air purifier on, or I like to have scented candles. I mean, this is how specific it gets. You mentioned music. For all of you, like playlists. You can create playlists to help stimulate and trigger your environment. You can have like an energy playlist. You can have a workout playlist. You can have a calming playlist. You can have like binaural beats that work on focus. I love using music at times when I feel I'm not able to kind of create the mood I want, and I just need that little boost. But like I was saying here with John Carl, it's like if you're working from home, your work environment will have its own set of ingredients that, if you haven't looked at them, are going to affect you in some way, and your emotions as well. And, you know, just for fun, like the ingredients for me, for joy as a desired emotion, are appreciation, gratitude, awareness, playfulness, silliness, contentment, open-heartedness. And I know what those mean, meaning appreciation. I wasn't always thankful or grateful or respectful of, you know, other people around me. So becoming aware of that many years ago, being able to look at that in a different way, recognizing how much that changed how I think and thought. Playfulness. Geez, I can be stiff. Like my partner is always laughing and sending me silly stuff from Instagram, and he like breaks himself up laughing. And that is one of the things I love about him, because he reminds me of that and brings that into my life. These are all the ingredients that are necessary to create the possibility of more joy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this might help if we play devil's advocate. You know, what would you need to do to move away from your desired emotional state? Sounds like we're doing an exercise we've already done, but sometimes asking things in a different way is part of the reframing. So how would you break the recipe? Now, and just think of this as the pressure gauge. You're working at a nuclear power plant, and you know you've got that little dial, and there's the whole area that's just like black and white with numbers, and it's white background, black numbers, and a black lever. And then you go into the yellow zone. That's the yield. That's the be careful. That's the pay attention. That's the, you know, got to release some pressure or something. And it's in the yellow zone that we have the opportunity to be in the gap, to be mindful, to be like, oh, I need to pull myself back into the safe zone. I need to trigger some of my emotional recipes. And if you don't, that's when you go into the red zone and the pressure blows. So just some notes about what you would need to do to enter the red zone, the opposite of how you want to feel. And, you know, sort of beating a dead horse with some of the examples. For me, the breakdown of joy in my life means being overtired, feeling stressed or frantic or anxious, feeling overwhelmed. Oh, overwhelm is the big one for me. And all those things might lead to me feeling anger or resentment, especially if it's around a person that I'm having a challenge with. Oh man, I do not experience joy when I'm in those states. Is this providing a little bit more clarity?
Well, I don't have a lot of examples, but the first thing that came to mind was with connectedness. It was what would break the recipe is if I start feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Or that would maybe be
Go ahead.
The result of it being broken, I guess. I don't know. But if I notice I'm feeling lonely or feeling sorry for myself or, you know, whatever, then I ought to be doing something to feel more connected.
And so a recipe there would be like, pick up the phone, send an email,
Yeah.
send a text.
Yeah. Pick up the phone, Zoom somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, this is making a suggestion here, not very coach-like, but you know, sometimes vulnerability is important, to be able to reach out to someone and say, I'm feeling lonely. Can we get together today? Can we have a conversation?
Mhm.
It's kind of funny that you should use that as an example, because I did that recently to a couple of friends, because I live alone in Aurora, and these are my really, really good friends.
Right.
And I actually reached out and said, yeah, I'm feeling a little depressed. I'm feeling a little bit isolated and whatever. And I was kind of surprised at what little effort they put back into. And I mean, I love these people and I know they love me. So, you know, I was thinking, like, have I made them uncomfortable? Like, are they, you know, because they've come to me in the past and said, I'm feeling really depressed, and I've been there for them. So I was kind of surprised when it turned out, they're not actually there for me. How am I going to deal with that?
Yeah. That's an interesting challenge. Certainly something we could have a chat about if you want outside of the webinar, because that would be a bigger one that'll take us down a whole other avenue.
Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Sure.
Sure. So let's get into the final step then. So that I'm so geeky here. I just went to red, and now my face is red on the camera, and I went to white. So what can you do to experience your core, your top 2 to 3 desired emotions more often? We've touched on some of this, but this drills down into things I've already mentioned: the habits, the actions, the behaviors, the triggers, the environments, the music, the people in your life that will promote more of how you want to feel. And this is always coming from the self. So you're guiding your own path. You've got your own compass in hand with your true north to feeling more of what you want to feel. That navigation might require picking up the phone and calling someone, cleaning up your office so that it's the most optimal state so that you can have the greatest amount of focus, making sure that you have give and take in your family and friend relationships, and, you know, working on the ways in which you navigate that conversation and agreement. Actually, I'll mention just briefly to what you said earlier, Carrie, and I'll let me just write this down. Carrie, Pep, respect. I'll send you just directly my personal evolution process for how to get the respect you want in your life.
Okay.
Which speaks to the challenge of expectations versus agreements. Because if we expect people to treat us in a particular way, they will never meet our expectations. But if we have agreements with other people, that means we've had a conversation about, this is how I feel, this is what I need. And they're like, well, Carrie, this is how I feel, and this is what I need. And you'd be like, that's fantastic. Great. Now we all know we're on the same page. Very simplistic way of explaining this right now, but that's often the challenge with discord in relationships. If there's expectations, which are always usually unspoken, sort of intellectual demands of what we think that people are going to do for us.
Yeah.
This is the most brutal way I didn't mean to make it sound brutal, but that's like the sort of the most curt, direct way of explaining it.
Yeah.
So think for this one here, I mean, this is just building upon a slightly different question, building upon some of what you've already done here. It's just getting more into alignment with other empowering emotions or situation and events that support a healthy hedonic tone. So Dave, for example, wanting to be more connected, And, an environment might be for you being out at a coffee shop or being out at a restaurant. So not only are you with someone, but you see more people. So our eyes see, oh, there's like connection going on all around me, right? And I'm thinking, John Carl, something you were saying. That just come to me. If it comes to me, I'll mention it. I sort of had an idea flirted in, but then flirted right out while I was talking. Sorry. So we'll move on to the next step. You can always develop a little bit more here. If you had to prioritize experiencing only one of your desired emotions, which one would it be? And how does experiencing that one emotional state positively affect the potential of your other desired emotions? So think of it this way. I think, who said it? One of you said it. I can't remember. One of you said, I think if I felt this, it would help me feel all these other emotions. And that's often the case. I know for me, excuse me, peace of mind or contentment. If I have peace of mind, I can feel more joy. I can feel calm. I will feel my own focus and self-awareness. I will have self-control. And that peace of mind has all those recipe components like sleep, proper eating, exercise, the other emotional recipes that keep me in peace of mind: learning, reading fiction, working like this, doing this work with people. Oh my gosh, this just gives me such peace of mind through satisfaction. I love the process of interacting in this way and learning as I watch myself, but also as I see how other people are responding. John, do you have a sense of which is your, if you only could focus on one that might give priority or might allow all the others, which one would that be?
I find myself drawn to the focus.
Okay.
One.
And how does experiencing focus positively affect the potential of your other desired emotions?
Well, if I stay focused, I will become more confident over time because I'll produce more. And if I'm more confident, then I'll be more calm.
Did you write that down?
No, but I would draw some arrows right now.
Okay. So those are great because what you, Carrie and Dave, if you hear what John Carl said there, if, for example, John, you were to prioritize all of the necessary ingredients and the steps of organizing those ingredients to create focus, it's almost like they say the likelihood of creating a long-term habit is if you just focus on one habit at a time, right? And then, or people will say about, develop your strengths and your other strengths will follow. I mean, it's like, and still we have to sometimes work on what we consider to be weak or weaknesses, and whatever, it's such a loaded word, but what you've identified in a way is kind of what another aspect of this is like, what's really important to you and what you value. Focus, because focus will lead to. How are you with this one, Carrie?
Yeah, I'm definitely listening, and I'm just trying to identify, what is the emotion that I would like to have? And I think it's that I would like to be able to feel calm, to be at peace. I think I've actually said that in the past.
Yeah.
In the ending of a very long-term relationship, I remember saying, I just want peace. And so when I think about that emotional state of feeling peaceful would actually affect all my other emotions.
Yeah. Like, just to extrapolate, I'm not saying it's what would happen, but
No.
if you did the practices and were becoming ever more calm, having ever more peacefulness, and then suddenly you have a call on a Sunday with the family, and you're just in that state of mind, and nothing bothers you, because maybe what was bothering you wasn't anything to do with them.
Yeah, I think that can be very true in a very busy life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say, oh, it's your fault or your problem. What it's suggesting is that when our needs are not being met, which could be the kind of emotions we want to feel or other things in our life, something else that doesn't go the way we want it to outside of ourselves is then a trigger. Makes us feel insecure or not safe or stressed. And that's what takes us out of the logical thinking brain and into the mammalian brain. And then we're like, am I getting acceptance? Am I getting connection? Am I getting care? I need this from outside of myself. This is very biological. Like the bond between, a parent or a mother and a child is what starts to create that acceptance, connection, and care. It is the holding of the child close to the body. It is the looking at the child through the eyes. What we are doing genetically is creating the conditions for how our brains work.
Yeah.
So at the extreme, someone that was ripped away from their parents or didn't have a good emotional, tender upbringing, or growing up in the closet, gay shame or queer shame of any kind, those are all the things that affect negatively acceptance, connection, care, as well as identity. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah.
So if we think of this one this one emotion, what's the simplest action you can take that'll help you enjoy more of it? So what is the smallest, easiest, simplest action? Almost like a whole row of dominoes. All it takes is just the finger touch of that one domino, and this gorgeous domino picture of like a lion comes to view that was made up of 5,000 dominoes. But all it took was this one tiny push of a finger. And all of these other events, ingredients, pre-programmed recipes almost can't help but follow, assuming we have the recipe in place. But right now we're just looking at one little step. So for Carrie, it's like, what's the simplest action that could help move you towards or to do something that'll help you feel calm? And John Carl, what is the simplest action that'll move you to feeling a greater sense of focus? And for Dave, what is the simplest action that will make you feel like you're potentiating or feeling connection?
I think for me, blocking out productive time will be a nice small action.
Can I ask a question about that? Because that happens to be one of my problems as well.
Yeah, can I just dig into John's question quickly, if you can hold that just for a sec?
Yeah.
So okay. No, I was needing to sort of think through. That's fine, John. Go with that. Okay, Carrie, I just needed a moment to figure if I wanted to dig into that a little bit more, but I think that that's a good example of like a simplest action. So Carrie, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is, when you say a block of productive time, is that like, you know, that a certain time of the day is more productive for you, or, you know, let's say an hour after a meeting when you've had a chance to have lunch or something that you feel more productive? Like, how would you define that? I don't know if you have an answer to that, but it's interesting to me.
Is that a question for John or for myself?
Yeah, that's a question for John. Just when he said that, you know, the way that he could see himself being able to be more productive would be to have a block of productive time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a combination of finding a time when, you know, just making sure I schedule time where I have energy,
Okay.
and not scheduling things during that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is something John Carl and I have talked about, something that I think works well, especially if you're somebody who works from home and primarily has control over their own time, is to also understand our energy throughout the day and throughout the week. So I tend to prioritize my generative creation time, like just pure writing or pure thinking, earlier in the week, because it kind of gets that part of the brain gets tired. Fridays, I very rarely write anything new other than maybe putting together my newsletter, doing administration, doing banking, doing some production. But my creation is primarily always generative creation is in the morning. And then after lunch, I will tend to do more tasks. I'll do learning, I'll do reading, I'll have client sessions. So if John, for example, doesn't have a time scheduled regularly on his day planner to be productive, well, you can get up in the day and you're like, well, what am I going to do today? So part of being productive is also having a plan. And part of having a plan is knowing when you're going to do A, B, C, D, and E.
Yeah. Okay.
So from process to practice, so we can wrap things up. So I asked you to consider your most important emotion for a reason. And it's this one emotion that can really make all the difference in your life. And I think we kind of drove that home in what we talked about. And it supports your other desired emotions. It doesn't necessarily mean it's like a hierarchy on top of everything, but it's just the way it works. This is the motion that will make everything else more efficient or easier. So prioritizing it may also be the easiest way to avoid sliding into the red zone of undesired emotional states. So what I would say is like one of the invitations.
Sorry. Can you back up to that last one? I missed that one.
Sure. I'll just pop them all up here. And I've got a PDF that I'll send all of you, which is basically a duplicate of this.
Okay.
So definitely review what we've done here if you want to drill down deeper into the definitions, the refinements of the different questions, if you want to expand what you've written down for your 2 to 3 emotions you want to avoid, emotions you desire. But to make the most of this process and anything that we do in life to make any kind of new behavior, new habit, any kind of self-improvement, we need to practice. So it's just an invitation. You could go much longer, but practice the domino action, that simplest thing. So John Carl was like scheduling time. Well, maybe you only need to do that once if it's a recurring event in your calendar. So if you've taken care of that simplest action, then my invitation to you would be, what's the next simplest action to get into focus, right? But it might be that your simplest action is kind of like a small practice that would move you towards more calm, that would move you towards feeling more connected. And we've all got different ways of being reminded. Use a Post-it note. Use a rubber band around your wrist, set reminders in some sort of an app or put it in your calendar to practice this domino action. Give it priority in a visual sense so that you'll be reminded. It's like, Carrie, it could just be calm on a piece of paper and you'll know, oh yeah, I've got to do this one small step. Damn it, that guy Darren. You reminded me to be calm.
Yeah.
And then just a reminder of the equation for how we can master our thoughts, feelings, actions, and behavior. So we've done a lot of self-awareness work. The observation will continue as you leave this webinar and you pay attention, and the observation will continue with the final practice that I offer you. And using this process, going through, refining. If things go awry, you can always revisit this process. That's what gives you the preparedness so that you can better manage experiencing more of the emotions you want to feel. So here's how you can observe the benefits of this process and practice over time. I would suggest you make notes. This doesn't have to be a lot of writing, but just like notes in your journal or your diary, both in the morning and in the evening, as part of this 7-day invitation, not only to practice and be reminded of your domino effect, but in the evening, just look back. Which of my desired emotions did I experience today? So if you've got your 2 or 3, you may just want to make a note in your journal. It's like, so in the exercise I did with Darren today, these are the 3 emotions that I identified that I want to experience more of. And you might just write down these questions so you can flip back and check. I said, whether this is a handwritten journal or a digital journal or however you do it. But this is a good way of just reflecting. It's like, which one of my emotions did I experience today? You can write more, you can qualify it. You can talk about the individual experiences that happened that maybe brought you those emotions and feelings. And then take account, like, how did I stay out of the red zone by practicing any of my emotional recipes, or by noticing the ingredients that came up into play that brought me towards the yellow zone, the danger zone, and if I did go into the red zone, or how did I stay out of the red zone if I did stay out of the red zone, or even just acknowledging, crap, lost it, went into the red zone. But now I can write down, it's like, oh, well, this is what happened. I didn't do this, or I didn't pay attention to that, or I had such a crappy sleep. I knew I was going to lose my whatever.
Yeah.
And then for me, the most important question here is, what can I do tomorrow to experience more of my desired emotions? Now, there's been some really interesting research. I don't have any of those links right now because I just thought of it now, that if we think very close to going to bed, whether you're journaling in bed or just close to going to bed, you're thinking about how you want to experience more of your desired emotions tomorrow. It's similar to like writing down a problem that you want to solve, or a research question that you're working on. And, just writing it down, that hand to paper, it'll be in your brain. And sometimes in sleep, we work these things out. Sometimes we don't. But what can I do tomorrow to experience more of my desired emotions? It may be, well, when I get up, I know I need to do this, or I know I need to contact my friend because I want to make sure that I don't feel lonely or disconnected come the end of the week. I need to plan out a couple of events. I need to go and practice my yoga, or I need to go take a walk in nature, whatever the case may be. And so if you journal in the morning, something I highly recommend, I think it's just briefly my sales pitch for journaling, and I'm not selling anything that costs anything here. I get up, go to the bathroom, get my coffee, and I write whatever comes to mind. I don't give myself any pressure. I don't have a template unless I'm sometimes doing something like this. But I find there are things that come out of my head that I would have never captured, would have never been aware of if I hadn't have taken the chance. I sometimes come up with articles, podcasts. I sometimes solve problems that I didn't know I had. Or I'm reflecting on something I did with a client and I'm like, oh my goodness, or whatever the case may be. So quickly review your journal from the night before. Specifically, we're looking at that last question. What can I do tomorrow to experience more of my desired emotion? Well, we look at our morning journal and we review what we wrote. Oh yeah, here are some of the reminders of what I can do today to experience more of my desired emotions. And then write down, what are the dominant emotional states that you want to experience today? They might not be what you've identified. Maybe you're going into a meeting. Maybe you're meeting some family. Maybe, I don't know, you're going on a trip. And, you've got to figure out, well, how am I going to prepare for this for the best outcome? And that's basically what I just said here. What can you do during the day to support that desired emotional state? Will it mean putting up a couple Post-it notes to remind yourself of something? Will it mean looking at your calendar and saying, I really better exercise because I know it's going to, this is my personal thing. I used to do personal training and fitness coaching for 15 years. And I was getting close to finishing just before COVID hit. And my last in-home client ended around the 15th of February. And then COVID hit. And I was like, bingo, I'm officially retired. But I like working out at gyms. I really dislike working out at homes. Well, the personal trainer who was working out since he was like 19 years old and then doing it for a living stopped working out, and then like going a month with her. I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's like a 35-year habit broke by COVID. And I've recently, and it took me quite a while to just recognize that I have to get up, I have to do my journal. That's my number one thing. And then I need to exercise between 7 and 8, at least 3 days a week. The difference it makes in all of my capacity and my emotional states is that's my thing. So what can you do during the day to support that desired emotional state? And that's it. Just a quick question. Are you all, can I send you all, can I attach something here? Are you all able to download something if I send an attachment?
Sure.
Okay, so.
I might not be able to because I'm on my iPad and I can't quite remember if I'm able to do it.
Okay. If not, then there we go. I'll just put here file. This is the personal evolution process that we've gone through, but just in a simple text format. And I can just email it to you, Carrie, if you're not able to download it. So that, if you missed writing down something, there are more personal evolution processes on my website. It's across the top of the page. I think it says free or downloads. I forget exactly.
Yep.
And, if there's just an invitation, John and I are working together, but if Carrie or Dave, you're interested in experiencing coaching, there's no pressure and there's no sales pitch here. The way I work with anyone is the same at the beginning. I'm available for like a 90 minute to a 2-hour real coaching conversation. Whatever it is you present, we can frame it beforehand, but it's just an opportunity that if I'm able to help, I'm able to help without any expectation at the end. So any questions?
No, thank you very much, though, for a really great session. I think I've learned quite a bit there, and it'll take, a little bit of gelling, but I'll definitely go to your website and have a closer look at things.
What's is a question I love to ask. John Carl knows this one. It's like, was there like one particular insight that you took from today's session?
I think
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you helped me identify how important connectedness is to me today. And that will support all these other emotions. At least it will now. It may change in the future, but right now, I think I need connectedness. And so that was very helpful, because I know things I can do to promote being connected. I've been doing them, but I haven't realized that that's what I need to keep doing in order to improve my connectedness.
Beautiful. And it's funny on one hand that at the end of this session, it's like, it almost seems simple in a way. But we have so many things going on that unless we sometimes like put things together like in a process like this and take the time and define, refine, align, which is why it's this 3-step, and it almost seems like some of the questions are repetitive, but it's just, it uncovers more layers. And then we know we have within us what it takes to do it. We may need some help along the way. And what you identified is really great. Like, things change. Our values might change over time. Our beliefs might evolve. And as we become better at a particular emotion, then maybe we move into experiencing another one that becomes our dominant focus.
I was just going to say that for me, the model, the systematization, the recipe idea really works for me, because I've done a lot of reading, therapy, journaling, but so a lot of it gets into my head. But I think that this having a system, step by step, to really prepare myself for those moments that I'm confronted with those stressful situations.
I think the challenge I see in the personal development industry is this templatization, if that's a word. Everybody's like, download my free template to do this. And some of those might actually really help. It really depends, but we're individuals. And, what Carrie, your definition of calm means to you is you as a person, your environment, your relationships, and my definition of peace of mind might be similar, but all the things that lead up to the understanding of what that means and the practices that I might need or you might need are going to be unique, and we'll have a different evaluation and a different sense of importance or urgency. So these processes kind of sometimes scare people, because they're like, oh my God, I have to do work. It's like, yeah, we have to do the self-work to get the biggest results. But so, yeah, if you take the invitations and put them into practice, the journaling and the awareness and the domino effect, like, that's why it's like we go through the hard work and try and end up for you with like, what's the simplest action? Because that simplest action means it's easy. And then it's easy to go, wow, I realize I need to pay attention to this. And then you might not even consciously make the decision, I am now going to put more importance on doing this.
Yeah.
Carl.
Oh, well, it was very useful to identify the key emotion that would cascade downwards. Yeah, that's very useful. And I just love your strategies anyway. I mean, you've always got great strategies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Darren, I would say in sort of a broader sense that it was helpful to actually go through answering some questions and writing things down with you today and getting some feedback as I went along. Because I've tried another one of your PEPs about the one about defining your core beliefs about sex, love, and relationships.
Yeah.
And I just got bogged down. I couldn't get very far in it. And
Right.
So,
well, invitation to you. If that is, if you'd like to connect for a conversation over that, we could even, if you want, we could go through that one-on-one.
okay.
Because that's a heavier one. There's sex,
Yeah, there's
love,
a
and
lot.
relationships. There's a lot there.
Yeah, I had trouble with that one alone too. I would like a guide on that.
You know, what you've just told me is I was wondering, like, and I appreciate you all hanging on here with me. It's like this was an experiment for me to see how this will work in a group format. But I've always found this kind of work, if people are willing to really show up and play, and you know, it's up to me to try and create like a supportive environment that's non-judgmental, so you feel comfortable sharing with people you don't know necessarily. You'll benefit from what other people say. And there is that dynamic. So Carrie says something, John Carl says something, Dave, you say something, and I'm like, oh, that gives me an idea. And I can sort of bridge all these things together, or I can contrast and compare. For example, you know, each of your sort of for each of you, your one core emotion that is most desirable, right? So I think the sex, love, and emotions is one I should definitely offer as a webinar, because I think that would really dig deep and be helpful for other people to experience what that is. So. Any final thoughts or?
No, that's really great, Darren. Thanks a lot for reaching out.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks. This has been good.
All right, all. Well, this will take probably some time to it has to download and do some processing and stuff, but I'll get a link up so that you can actually view the video. And Carrie, were you able to download the process, or do I have to email?
No, I'll have to get it from you, I guess, in the form of an email, please.
Yep. So I'll do that, and I'll do the emotional recipes. Okay, so we'll send that to you. And John and Dave, were you able to download the process?
Yes, I downloaded and was able to open it.
I haven't checked yet, so
I'm
pretty sure I will.
It's in the chat. If not, I have your email from when you signed up. I can send it to you directly if you wish.
Okay, that'd be great. Yes.
Okay. I'll send it to Dave as well then. And sorry, John, you said yes, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much for showing up. I really appreciate the three of you being here.
Great.
Okay.
And
looking forward to referring other people to come and do this.
Thank you. And you know, totally open. If you wish to, like, if you have a question, feel free to email me directly. If you want to just send me a note, even in 7 days, like how's it going? What have you learned? Has there been improvement? I'd love to know.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so we end it.